Here I have an assembly with a block and an insert that I would like to add a few reference geometry items to: a point, an axis, and a coordinate system. To access these reference geometry tools, I can go to the Assembly tab of the Command Manager and click on Reference Geometry. Or I can go to the Insert drop-down menu under Reference Geometry. First, I'll add a point to the assembly, so I will click on it in the menu. The Property Manager updates with a number of options for inserting a reference point. There is a window that displays the selected entities used to create the reference point, as well as a number of options below that assist in selecting specific geometry in the assembly. With none of the options selected in the Property Manager, I can click any available point on a component in the assembly. For instance, I can select the arc along the corner of the whole block. This causes the Property Manager to automatically select the Arc Center option, and a preview of the point appears in purple. If I click the green check in the Property Manager, a point has been added to the graphics area and is listed in the feature tree. I'll go ahead and delete this feature. And I'll create a new reference point to demonstrate some of the additional options. If the first option, Arc Center, is chosen, the reference point will be created at the center of that arc within the plane. And if I choose the Center of Face option, I can choose any face on any component, and Solidworks will automatically add the point at the center. This also includes curved faces, such as a cylinder, or this curved face here. I'll clear the selection. And if I choose the Intersection option, I must choose two entities that intersect at a point. Two edges most commonly create this reference point. I'll select the front edge and right edge of the block, and a point is created where the two edges would intersect if they were extended. I'll clear the selections. And if I choose the Projection option, I need to select a plane and a point to project the point onto the selected plane. Keep in mind that the projection path is normal to the plane. I'll select the face on the right of the block, and a point on the top edge of the insert. And the purple reference point appears where they intersect. I'll clear the selections. And if I choose the On Point option, I can use a point from a sketch to create a reference point. I'll expand the feature tree, and for the whole block, I'll show the sketch that created the initial boss extrude. Now, if I click the corner of the rectangular sketch, Solidworks will create a reference point at this location. I'll clear the selection, then hide the sketch. And if I choose the last option to enable multiple instances, I can insert multiple reference points that are spaced by distance, percentage, or to be evenly distributed. If I increase the number of reference points to 5, select the Evenly Distribute option, and click on a circular edge of the insert. A total of 5 reference points are created along this edge. I'll click the green check to insert these reference points, and 5 reference points were added to the feature tree. This completes demonstrating how to add reference points. And in the next video, I'll walk through how to add axes and a coordinate system to this assembly. The Axis Reference Geometry tool can be activated from the same locations as the Point Reference Geometry. I'll go ahead and click on the Reference Geometry drop-down menu in the Assembly tab and click Axis in the menu. The Property Manager updates with 5 selection options. The first option, One Line, Edge, Axis, can utilize any existing line, edge, or axis to create an additional reference axis. If I click the right edge of the block, a reference axis can be generated along this edge. I'll clear the selection. And if I choose the next option, Two Planes, I can choose any 2 faces or planes to create an axis where they intersect. I'll select the top face of the insert, and the side face of the block, and a reference axis appears in the graphics area. It is important to note that the axis does not physically coincide with either part in the assembly, but the axis remains linked to the assembly's geometry. I'll click the green check, and if I move the insert to a new location and rebuild the assembly, Notice that the axis moved along with the insert and maintained its geometry. I'll move the insert back to its approximate original position. I'll edit the reference axis. Clear the selections, and if I choose 2 points vertices, I can choose any 2 points in the assembly to create a reference axis. I'll click on a corner of the block, and a corner along the top of the insert, and an axis preview is generated between the 2 points. I'll clear the selections, and if I choose the cylindrical conical face option, I can click on any cylindrical or conical face to create a reference axis along the face's central axis. I'll select the curved corner of the block, and a preview of the reference axis is generated along the face's central axis. To demonstrate the last type of reference axis, I'll clear the selection, and if I choose Point and Face Plane, I can create the axis by choosing a plane and a point. I'll rotate the insert. Choose the top face of the insert as the plane, and a point along the top face of the block, and the preview of the axis appears. Notice that the axis is normal to the plane of the face I selected, and will remain normal if the parts change position or orientation. I'll click the red X to exit this reference tool, delete the reference axis from the feature tree, and I'll move on and demonstrate how to insert a reference coordinate system. Reference coordinate systems are also found in the same locations as the point and axis reference geometry tools. I'll click on the Reference Geometry drop-down menu in the Assembly tab and click Coordinate System in the menu. A reference triad appears in the Graphics area. The Property Manager updates, and there are 4 selection fields available to define the coordinate system: an origin location and 3 edges to define the directions of the axes. Notice, however, that there are only 2 reverse direction buttons available for the 3 axes. This is because a coordinate system can be fully defined by 2 axes, along with the directions of those axes. To position the coordinate system, I will first make sure the origin selection box is highlighted, and I will choose the top left corner of the block as the origin. The triad moves, and the selection window changes to highlight the x-axis. For the x-axis, I'll choose the edge along the front of the block. If the axis is pointing in the wrong direction, I can click the reverse direction button to change which way is positive. For the y-axis, I'll choose the left edge on the front face of the block, and the coordinate system is fully defined. If I change the direction of the y-axis, notice that the z-axis changes direction as well. The direction of the third axis, which is the z-axis in this case, is determined by the right-hand rule. The right-hand rule states that if you point the thumb of your right hand in the direction of the x-axis, and you point your other fingers in the direction of the y-axis, then your fingers bend at a 90-degree angle in the direction of the z-axis. I'll make sure that the reference coordinate system aligns with the assembly's coordinate system, and click the green check to complete inserting the reference coordinate system. This coordinate system is now available in the Feature Manager tree, and it can be edited the same way as any other feature.